Every surviving Norse myth tells the same story of Ragnarok, the end of all worlds when every god falls in battle against the giants. For 1,000 years, this is the version people have passed down, carved into stone and told around hearths across the frozen north. But the oldest known piece of rune text, found buried under glacial ice in a forgotten tomb, holds a completely different secret. The runes are faded, half eroded by time, but their message cuts through the centuries with unmistakable force. Odin did not die in the final battle of Ragnarok. He vanished long before it ever began. What stood in his place after that walk into the forest was never a god at all. It was only something that borrowed his face. The snow had already begun to creep across every northern realm by then, even across the golden walls of Asgard. Villagers huddled in their longhouses and whispered that the endless cold was Fimbulwinter, the sign the end was near. But what they did not know was this: the end of the gods did not start with a war cry. It started with one king of gods walking alone into a dark forest and never coming back the same. 9 long days passed after Odin walked into the forbidden forest. The great halls of Asgard stayed completely silent in his absence. Golden hearths dimmed to smouldering embers. No mead was poured, no battle songs were sung, no debates raged around the great throne. Guards patrolled the forest gate around the clock, their hands tight on their weapons, no sign of movement from the dark pines. Then, on the 10th dawn, Odin stepped out onto the stone threshold of Asgard. At first, no one dared question what they saw. His face was the same. His voice rumbled just as it always had when he called the Aesir to assembly. The first wrong thing was so small, most gods wrote it off as a trick of the dimmed half-light. He never blinked when he spoke. No one mentioned it, not out loud, not at first. Then came the second wrong sign. His 2 wolves, Jerry and Freki, who had waited at the foot of the throne every hour for 9 days, bared their fangs and backed away the second he stepped close. They refused to take meat from his outstretched hand and would not stop growling until he turned and walked away. A handful of senior gods murmured the wolves had gone wild with hunger after waiting so long. No one pushed the question further. Then the 3rd sign hit, and it could not be explained away. Every silver mirror lining Valhalla's entrance cracked from edge to center the moment he walked past. Shards clattered loud across the cold marble floor, splitting into pieces so small no smith could ever put them back together. A quiet, cold unease bloomed through the great halls after that. No one said the words out loud, but every god felt it under their skin. The Odin who had come back was not the Odin who had left. Thor was the first to name the wrongness coiling in the halls of Asgard. One night, he slipped off his belt of strength and left it hidden in his quarters, so no one would sense the hum of its power when he followed. He tracked Odin's slow, steady steps down, winding stone steps that cut deep beneath Yggdrasil's gnarled roots. The air grew colder the further he went, cold that seeped into his bones and didn't warm no matter how hard he breathed. The stone walls dripped with water that tasted like ash when it touched his lips. He stopped outside a heavy oak chamber door, locked with a rusted iron bar that no one had touched in centuries, and he heard it. Thousands of overlapping whispers, rising and falling, in no language any Aesir had ever heard. No single word made sense, but the hunger in the sound was unmistakable. Thor wrapped his hand around the iron bar, heaved it off its brackets, and slammed the door open hard against the stone wall. The thing that wore Odin's face stood before a shadowed throne, talking to a darkness that rolled like liquid smoke across the chamber floor. It slowly turned toward Thor. For a heartbeat, Thor still hoped he was wrong, that it was just Odin hiding a secret ritual, preparing for Ragnarok. Then its face split vertically from hairline straight down to its chin. There was no flesh inside, no bone, no blood, only stars. Ancient, dead stars that burned out long before the first world was ever woven. Thor knew the truth in that single, frozen second. The real Odin had died in that hidden well beyond the forbidden forest. Something older, hungrier, had stolen his skin. His hand went to the handle of his hammer at his hip, but his muscles would not obey. He could not move. The next morning, Thor was gone. No trace of him, no blood, no broken stone, just the splintered oak door hanging off its hinges, swinging slow in the cold, rude wind. The remaining Aesir gathered at the chamber, but found only the darkness gone, the fake Odin sitting on his great throne, smiling the same smile he always had. They told themselves Thor had fallen to some wild beast in the roots, that it was an accident. 3 days later, Tyr never returned from his planned hunt beyond Asgard's walls. Then Heimdall abandoned his post at the Bifrost. No word, no warning. One by one, every god walked the path into the dark beneath the roots. One by one they returned, changed, silent, still, hollow, just like the thing that wore Odin's face. Every popular Norse myth says Ragnarok began with a great war between gods and giants, that it was a battle of fire and steel that tore the 9 worlds apart. But the forgotten rune fragments tell a different truth. Ragnarok truly began the day the gods stopped being gods at all. It started long before any prophet carved the first rune warning of the final battle. And the oldest surviving fragment, carved into a stone buried under ice for 10,000 years, says this: the creature wearing Odin's skin still waits beneath the world tree's roots. It watches the movements of humanity across the 9 worlds. It waits for the endless winter to come again.